Lieutenant Nathan Hale had always thought he understood humans. He had studied their history, their wars, their triumphs, even their failures. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the moment he stepped onto the observation deck of the UES Discovery and saw Commander Rathara, leader of the Valkyran warriors, for the first time. The Valkyrans were unlike anything in the human records. Towering, tusked, armored creatures who moved with a grace that belied their size. They commanded presence wherever they went. Rathara, however, was different. She carried an aura of authority that was difficult to describe. Her crimson skin shimmered under the observation lights, and her sharp, intelligent eyes seemed to look straight into the soul of anyone who dared meet her gaze. Hale was tasked with guiding her through the ship, answering her questions and making sure that above all he did not insult her. Hale had memorized every cultural norm, every nuance. He knew the Valkyrans placed honor above all else. He knew how their language had words for loyalty, bravery, and respect that could not be fully translated into human terms. He had read about their customs regarding compliments, flattery, and even casual conversation. He believed he was ready. 5 minutes later, he realized he was not. It had started innocently enough. Rathara was inspecting the ship's engineering bay, her armored fingers tracing the smooth contours of the maintenance panels. She moved silently, almost floating, as if she was part of the ship itself. Hale tried to keep pace, speaking in calm, measured tones, hoping to appear knowledgeable. He commented on the engines, the efficiency of the layout, and even made a joke about the AI complaining more than the crew. Rathara listened, said nothing, and continued her inspection. Then it happened. In a moment of poor judgment, Hale smiled and said, "You look kind of cute when you're serious." The words left his mouth like a shot. He had barely realized what he said until he saw the reaction. The air seemed to freeze. Every Valkyran nearby stopped moving. Their massive tusks reflected the dim light, their eyes wide with shock. Hale's stomach dropped into his boots. He had broken some unknown code, committed some cultural atrocity, and there was no going back. Rathara froze. Her mandibles twitched. For a moment, Hale thought she was going to attack him, but instead she emitted a low trill. The translator beeped to life in his ear. The words translated into something completely unexpected. "You court me? Before witnesses?" Hale froze. He had accidentally proposed to a Valkyran warrior, and not just any warrior, but the leader of their military delegation. His mind raced. How could he fix this? What could he possibly say to explain this away? Captain Yao appeared behind him, her face pale and her hands gripping the rail of the observation deck. "Hale," she hissed. "What did you say?" I meant, you look impressive." Hale's words tumbled out in a jumble. "I meant impressive. I didn't mean," the translator cut in. "Cute is a sacred term. It signifies a vow, a personal bond between mates. You declared a bond." Hale's jaw dropped. "You've got to be kidding me." "Unfortunately, we are not," Captain Yao replied. She pinched the bridge of her nose. "The High Command is going to want a word with you. This is delicate." Hale stared at Rathara. She was still red, her massive shoulders tense, her eyes narrowing in a way that could flatten mountains. "Red?" he muttered. "Are you angry?" "Red signifies embarrassment and honor conflict," the translator said. "She is deciding whether to honor your words or challenge you." Hale swallowed hard. Challenge him? His heart beat faster. He had trained for alien encounters, zero-gravity maneuvers, and diplomatic talks, but no manual covered this. Not one. He had no plan, no backup, nothing. The next hours passed in a blur. Hale tried to speak with Rathara privately, to apologize, to explain the misunderstanding, but every attempt ended in awkward silence or more confusion. She did not shout, did not attack. She simply regarded him with a quiet, smoldering intensity that made him feel like an insect caught in a spider's web. Meanwhile, the Valkyran delegation was in an uproar. Some whispered among themselves, others trilled in excitement, and a few simply stared at Hale with a mixture of horror and amusement. It seemed the entire crew of the Discovery had caught wind of the incident, and whispers began circulating through the ship. "The human suitor," someone muttered, barely concealing laughter. Hale wanted to disappear. He wanted to crawl under the nearest console and stay there until the universe forgot him. But the reality was harsher. The High Command demanded that he appear before their council. If he refused, the consequences could range from diplomatic disgrace to outright banishment from Valcora space. As the Discovery approached Valcora Prime, Hale tried to prepare. He reviewed his notes, reread every line about Valkyran etiquette, and tried to memorize every cultural nuance. It didn't help. Nothing could prepare a human for the intensity of an entire species, judging your accidental words as a declaration of intent. When the ship finally entered orbit, the view of Valcora Prime was awe-inspiring. The planet was covered in vast, jagged landscapes, massive cities of black steel, and banners that flew like rivers of fire in the windless atmosphere. The grand hall where the council met loomed in the distance, surrounded by the largest training grounds Hale had ever seen. Warriors trained in formations that looked impossible, their movements precise, elegant, and deadly. Hale's hands were clammy as he followed Captain Yao down the docking bay. The ground beneath his boots felt heavier than normal gravity, weighed down by anxiety, shame, and fear. Every step brought him closer to the council, closer to the moment when he would have to explain or defend his words. He was not alone. Rathara walked beside him, her armor clinking softly with each step. Despite her red hue, she made no move to attack him. Her expression, however, was unreadable, as if she were calculating the exact moment to decide his fate. Hale wondered if she had ever smiled before. They entered the grand hall, a vast chamber of steel and stone filled with Valkyran elders, warriors, and diplomats. Every eye turned to the human who had dared to speak the forbidden word. The council's elder, a massive figure with scales darker than night, spoke first. His voice was like rolling thunder. "Lieutenant Nathan Hale," he said, "you have used a word of sacred significance. You have challenged our customs, and you have declared what no human should declare lightly. Explain yourself." Hale's mind went blank. He could feel his pulse in his throat. The entire hall seemed to lean forward, waiting. He tried to speak, but his words faltered. He remembered the advice Captain Yao had given him. Be honest. Humans are not perfect, but truth carries weight. I made a mistake, Hale began. I meant nothing. Nothing like what you might think. I admire you. I respect your people. I said a word I didn't understand fully, and I apologize. I am not a Valkyran. I am human. We sometimes say things without knowing the full meaning. The hall was silent. Hale thought he had failed, that he would be expelled from Valcora space, that his life was over. But then Rathara stepped forward. Her red hue softened slightly. She regarded him with curiosity, not anger. The translator activated again. Your words are strange, human, she said. Yet you did not speak with dishonor. You spoke with sincerity. Hale blinked. Sincerity? He repeated. Yes, she said. Humans are curious. They stumble, they err, and yet they continue. That is a kind of courage we respect. Hale's stomach relaxed slightly, though he did not dare to hope. The council murmured among themselves, the tension in the hall shifting. He had survived the first moment. He had not yet been accepted, but he had not been condemned either. Captain Yao gave him a subtle nod. Keep going, it seemed to say, Rathara continued. The council will decide your fate. You may remain in our presence, human, but you will be tested. You will show that your heart is true, that your intentions are honorable. Only then will the word you spoke be considered for its meaning. Hale swallowed hard. He had no idea what the test would be, but he knew one thing. He would face it. He had to. For his life, for his honor, and for the strange respect he had already begun to feel for the red-skinned warrior beside him. As the meeting ended, Hale left the grand hall, his legs unsteady but his mind alert. He had survived the first encounter, but the real challenge was just beginning. And somewhere deep in his chest, a small, foolish part of him felt excited. For the first time, he understood that humans were not the strongest nor the fastest, but they had something else. Courage, curiosity, a stubbornness that refused to bow, and he was going to need all of it. The stars outside the ship twinkled as if they knew what was coming, and Nathan Hale took a deep breath, preparing himself for a future that was uncertain, dangerous, and strangely thrilling. Nathan Hale spent the next day preparing himself for what he still did not fully understand. The Valkyran Council had promised a test, a way to measure his honor, but no human record explained what such a test might be. He read his ship's notes, studied Valkyran traditions, and practiced every form of polite speech he could recall. Still, he felt unprepared. Rathara appeared beside him without warning, Her red hue had softened into a deep, thoughtful crimson, though the tension in her shoulders remained. "Human," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You will face the duel of truth. It is not combat as you understand it. It is a battle of words, ideas, and integrity. If you fail, the council may decide your presence is unacceptable." Hale blinked. A duel? With words? Yes, we fight with our minds and our hearts. Humor, honesty, and respect are weapons. Use them wisely. Hale swallowed. He had read novels and watched old dramas, but nothing had prepared him for a literal verbal duel against one of the galaxy's greatest warriors. And yet deep down he realized humans were good at this. Humans stumbled, they made mistakes, and somehow they found ways to turn their errors into meaning. Maybe, just maybe, he could survive. The duel was set in the grand hall. The chamber was vast, filled with echoes of every footstep. The council observed silently, their massive eyes locked on Hale and Rathara. Other Valkyrans lined the walls, curious and tense, eager to see the outcome of the human's strange words. Rathara began. "Explain yourself, human. Why did you speak the forbidden word? Why did you risk dishonor?" Hale drew a deep breath. I made a mistake," he said honestly. "I did not know the word's meaning. I did not intend disrespect. I admire you and your people, and I wanted to show that humans can respect others even if we are clumsy." A murmur ran through the hall. It was as if the Valkyrans had not expected sincerity. Rathara's tusks flexed slightly and her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "You claim honesty," she said. "You must show it." The duel began. At first it was a simple exchange. Rathara asked questions about his world, his culture, his values. Hale answered cautiously but openly. He spoke of Earth, of human history, of how humans made mistakes but learned from them. He told stories of small acts of courage, moments when ordinary people achieved extraordinary things simply because they refused to give up. Rathara listened. Her red skin pulsed with emotion, sometimes darker, sometimes lighter, reflecting the internal struggle she kept hidden from the council. Hale felt a small thrill. He was reaching her, then she raised the stakes. "Why should humans be considered honorable?" she asked. "Your species destroys worlds, fights wars, betrays alliances. You are not perfect. You are weak," Hale nodded. "We are weak," he admitted. "We make mistakes. We fight, we fail, we hurt each other, but we also rise. We rebuild. We keep trying. That is our strength. Not perfect strength, not invincibility, but persistence, curiosity, courage, heart. That is human honor." A deep, low hum ran through the hall. The council whispered among themselves. Hale had expected derision. Instead, he found curiosity, respect, even admiration. Rathara leaned forward. "And you?" she asked softly. "What do you want, human? Why do you seek honor with us?" Hale thought for a moment. He realized it was not for himself. Not entirely. "I want to prove humans are more than their mistakes. I want to show that even when we stumble, we can earn trust, respect, and friendship. I want to show that humans can be worthy allies even to warriors like you." The room was silent. Even the council seemed unsure how to respond. Then Rathara smiled, or as close as a Valkyran could smile. Her mandibles shifted slightly, a gesture of approval. The red glow softened to a gentle crimson, warm and almost shy. "You speak boldly, little human," she said. "Perhaps you are not entirely foolish." Hale laughed nervously. "I'll take that as a compliment." The council deliberated for hours. Hale waited, standing rigidly, unable to sit in the presence of so many warriors. Captain Yao and the rest of the human crew hovered near the doors, unsure whether to breathe, move, or faint. Finally, the High Elder spoke. His voice rumbled through the hall like distant thunder. "Lieutenant Nathan Hale has shown persistence, honesty, and courage. He has stumbled, yes, but he has also risen, and in doing so, he has honored our customs. The word he spoke shall not be erased, but it shall remain. With caution." Rathara stepped forward, closer to Hale than she had before. "You are still a human. You are still unpredictable, but your heart has merit. The vow is acknowledged. You may remain among us. You may prove your worth further." Hale felt a wave of relief crash over him. He had survived. He had not only survived, he had earned respect. From the Valkyrans, from Rathara, from himself. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Hale guided Rathara through more of the ship, this time without incident. She asked questions about humans, about Earth, about the way their species celebrated achievements and endured failures. Hale answered, careful but sincere, sharing stories that made her tusks twitch with what he imagined was amusement. That evening, as the Discovery orbited Valcora Prime, Hale sat in the observation deck, staring at the jagged landscape below. Rathara stood beside him, quiet now, not threatening, not angry, just present. "You humans are strange," she said finally. "You speak carelessly, yet sometimes your words carry more weight than steel." Hale smiled. "We have to," he said. "Because we're not strong enough to do everything with force. We rely on courage, on curiosity, on heart." Her red hue pulsed gently, a rhythm he could almost understand. "Perhaps," she said, "perhaps humans are worthy." Over the next few days, the Valcoran delegation worked closely with the Discovery crew. Hale became the liaison, a bridge between species. He learned more about Valcoran customs, and they learned about humans. Not just our technology, but our humor, our flaws, our persistence. They laughed together at misunderstandings, shared stories, and slowly a bond formed. One morning, Hale was walking through the corridor when Rathara appeared. She tilted her head slightly. "Human," she said, her tone softer than before. "You are fortunate. Not many would survive such a mistake. Few would turn it into respect." Hale grinned. "I guess being clumsy isn't all bad." She tilted her head again, and a small, almost imperceptible smile crossed her face. "Perhaps. But do not become too confident, little human. Honor is not so easily earned." "I wouldn't dream of it," Hale said, laughing. The crew of the Discovery watched as the first genuine moments of friendship between humans and Valcorans took shape. Stories of Hale's cute mistakes spread through the ship and beyond, and soon he became known not as a fool, but as the human who had turned a cultural catastrophe into interstellar diplomacy. Weeks later, the Discovery prepared to depart Valcora Prime. Rathara came to see Hale one last time before the ship jumped into hyperspace. Her red hue was calm now, not angry, not embarrassed, but warm, almost gentle. "You may leave, human," she said, "but remember this. The word you spoke carries meaning. Keep your heart true, and perhaps one day, you may speak it with understanding." Hale nodded. "I'll remember." "Thank you, Commander." As the ship accelerated away, Hale looked back at the planet, at the Grand Hall, at the warriors who had once judged him so harshly, and for the first time he felt something he had never expected. A sense of belonging, even among a species so different, so vast and so extraordinary. He realized that humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not invincible. But they had something else: courage, curiosity, persistence, and heart. That was enough. That was enough to survive, to earn respect, and sometimes to even change the minds of the galaxy's fiercest warriors. And Nathan Hale grinned, thinking about the moment when a single word had almost doomed him, but instead had opened a door. A door to friendship, respect, and a future filled with unexpected possibilities. The stars stretched before him, and he felt ready. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew one thing: humans would never give up, never back down, and never stop trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest strength in the universe.